So when you think about the founding of Florida, you probably have this image, right?
Right. Big Spanish ships crossing the ocean.
Exactly. Galleons, conquistadors, planting a flag for Spain. But when you really dig into these sources we've been looking at, that whole picture just, well, it falls apart.
It really does. The argument here is that Florida's story doesn't actually start in Europe.
No.
It really starts in Puerto Rico, or Boriken, as the indigenous Taino people called it. It was more of an extension from there.
The text calls it the Borican-La Florida axis. And the thing that I found so incredible is how it positions the Taino people as the real architects of all this.
That is the key. You have to stop thinking of the Taino as, just stuck on their islands. These were master navigators. I mean, we are not talking about small fishing boats here. The sources describe these things called canoa.
Which are what, exactly?
They're these massive dugout canoes. I mean, some could carry up to 150 people.
Wow. Okay, so that's not a canoe. That's a logistical vessel, a troop transport.
Precisely. And because of that technology, they already had this mental map of the whole Caribbean and the lands to the north.
So when someone like Juan Ponce de Leon shows up in 1513...
He wasn't just sailing into the complete unknown. The Taino gave him the intel. They're the ones who told him about Bimini and the land masses north of the islands.
He was essentially following a map they gave him verbally, but the deeper question the research gets into is why he even went. The myth is, the fountain of youth.
Yeah, that's the story we all get.
But the data from Puerto Rico at the time paints a much darker picture.
It was an economic crisis, plain and simple. The encomienda system, which was basically forced labor, it had absolutely shattered the Taino population in Puerto Rico.
Shattered is the right word. What were the numbers?
By 1548, the estimates suggest there were fewer than 500 Taino left on the entire island.
So the 1513 expedition wasn't exploration, it was. It was a resource raid. He needed bodies.
It was a slave raid. He even brought Tainos with him on the voyage to act as forced translators with the other tribes.
But that information flow, it seems like it went both ways. The sources mention this idea of an intellectual defense.
Yes, and this is a crucial insight. Taino refugees had already fled the horror in Puerto Rico. They took those massive canoes and paddled to Florida before the Spanish got there in force.
So they were acting as an early warning system.
Exactly. They weren't just fleeing, they were informing. They warned the mainland tribes, like the Calusa, about what was coming.
The tactics, the diseases, the slavery.
All of it. So when Ponce de Leon came back in 1521 with 200 settlers to start a real colony, the Calusa were ready for him.
And they fought back hard.
They attacked, the colony completely failed, and Ponce de Leon himself was killed in the fighting.
And there's even a linguistic link, right? The word cimarron.
Yes. It means runaway or resistance, and it connects that Taino experience directly to the Florida tribes. It was a shared network of defense.
A direct line from the Caribbean struggle to the mainland. So let's fast forward a bit to 1565. The founding of St. Augustine. We call it the oldest city in the U.S.
Right, but the logistics here show it was basically a suburb of San Juan. It was a Puerto Rican outpost.
It only survived because of that supply line, that tether back to the Caribbean.
And you can literally see it in the ground. The archaeology in St. Augustine turns up Isabella polychrome pottery.
Which is from the Caribbean.
Yes, and Mexican-style grindstones, metettes. They weren't just sending soldiers, they were transplanting their entire way of life, their food, their kitchens.
And their families. The sources point out that the first child of Spanish descent born in the contiguous U.S.
Martinico Arguelles in 1566.
His family wasn't fresh off a boat from Spain. They were stationed there from the Caribbean.
It just completely reframes the whole story. The establishment of the American South was, in many ways, a Puerto Rican achievement built on a Taino tragedy.
Our oldest city sits on a Caribbean foundation.
And the Taino were the invisible architects of the map, for better and for worse.
It just leaves you with this huge what if. If the Taino hadn't provided those original directions. Or, on the flip side, if they hadn't so effectively warned the Calusa to resist, would Florida have even become a Spanish colony at all? Or would we be looking at a completely different map today?
That's the question to sit with.